The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Neenah Common Council meeting for Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. The clerk will call the roll. Please indicate your presence on your roll call device.
Alderperson Boyette. Here. Erickson.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Ellis is excused. Weber.
Here.
No.
Here.
Steiner.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
And Borchert.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Hillstrom will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no appointments this. The next item on the agenda is approval of the council minutes and proceedings of July 17th regular session. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of the approval of those council proceedings? Any objection? Seeing none, those council minutes and proceedings from July 17th are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak relative to the consideration of Ordinance 2024-16, repealing and recreating Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances relating to sign regulations. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public hearing on this item? Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Consideration of ordinance number 2024-16. Anyone who would like to speak? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Moving on to the next item, the Plan Commission report pertaining to the public hearing. The Plan Commission meeting of July 30th, 2024. Alderman Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Minutes can be found on the city website. Commission recommends council approve ordinance number 2024-16, repealing and recreating Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances related to sign regulations, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Council President Borchert. Is there any discussion? Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully tend to support this ordinance. I think it's timely. We need to get this moving forward so we can get things moving again in this aspect. But my concern is regarding the timeline of the review to modernize this sign code. Assistant Director Schmitz in his memo had said they're going to hire consultants to rewrite and modernize in 24, but then it is likely to be pushed to 25. I think this really needs to be hopefully finalized. We can finally get this behind us. I mean, this item was originally identified in the first version of the 2040 comprehensive plan in 2017 as being out of compliance with a Supreme Court decision regarding content-based signage. So we've had quite a while, and obviously it's been quite the trials and tribulations, a couple court cases, over 6 figures when you take into account legal fees on both sides and things that we might be responsible for very soon. So I guess I would ask Assistant Director Schmitz, why was the decision made, or what's behind that to move it to 2025, or maybe Director Hayes, whoever would answer that, and what would be needed to do that now? I mean, what is the hindrance or the challenge to do that sooner rather than later?
Money and staff time.
Okay, if that being the case, would that what amount of monies would make this possible?
Brad, you recall, I think we were in that 40 to 50,000 range. Is that about right? Or is it? Maybe it was 30. But, Brad.
So again, our intent was to do the sign rewrite in 2024, but due to the court cases, we had to postpone it. So I think the sign code's probably in that $20,000 range. We do have some budgeted money for zoning code updates. My thought process is to look at the sign code and the zoning code together since they are intertwined. And my intent is to include money in the 2025 budget to include the zoning code as well.
Okay, question then, could we dovetail any of this into the Stantec housing study, or is it with zoning, is that totally different conversation?
I suspect that the housing study will have recommendations that will impact the zoning code and require changes. So I think that's kind of the thought process, is that the housing code would come first, or the housing study would come first, and ultimately the recommendations out of that would most likely improve or require changes to the zoning code.
So if we as the council wanted to make this happen in 2024, we would have to come up with monies to fund that process, because you indicate you planned in 2024, but you didn't budget for anything in 2024?
I can interrupt. That's half the question. That was half the answer. If you remember, money and time.
Okay.
We don't have the staff time in 2024 to do this code update.
But you did have the money, because originally it was planned?
Have money to do the housing study, which will lead to potential changes in the zoning code, which Brad has outlined. We'd like to nest with zoning code because they have, with sign codes because they have some relationship. But given that we are just beginning the housing study and everything else that we have on our plate in this year, we can certainly begin to queue things up for early 25. I mean, hard to believe we're in August already.
Yep.
But to get it done in the next 4 months is going to be difficult.
That's fair.
In fact, I would not advise it.
My fear is with the litigious society we have now, I wouldn't want something else to come in that duration.
So I don't know that we can help that. So I had anticipated a question of, with the changes that we have made to the code, are we now on solid legal ground that we would not be subject to any additional litigation? And my answer to that would be, I don't know that, because it's just, to your point, I can't say too much about the court case. I was somewhat appalled. I've mentioned last time, I don't know how an ordinance stands the test of a federal court and loses at a circuit court right down the street, but that's what happened. So to think that we're going to be, just because we're going to do the code or redo the code, that we would be immune, I think that would certainly be our hope, but would not be a guarantee. I know some of the language that we looked at and incorporated into the most recent change is from communities that have updated their code recently. So it's just the nature of the beast that we're in now.
So there's nothing that we can help, the council can help you probably to provide anything that you could get it done. It's just a time factor.
Now, barring major shifts in workload, particularly with the housing study that as we said, we've already contracted. And there is, as Brad outlined, a sequence to these things that the housing code or housing study is really this place to start and work our way all the way through the zoning code, all of which, well, the two codes at least, have not had comprehensive rewrites in my time. So we're looking at 3 decades. Now, I would also say there was changes with relatively recent court cases that have struck down ordinances that have been standing for many, many decades without challenge. So that environment, as you noted, is changing, it seems, very frequently, and we have to adapt to that.
Well, it sounds like the housing study might help this next initiative use some of that takeaways.
Absolutely. Well, it's as Brad mentioned, right? It could lay the foundation for changes to the zoning code, another code that hasn't been updated in a long time, and I think the sign code, and as Brad said, sign code and building code, sign code and zoning code have some relation, somewhat of a solid relationship between them. That it's good to look at both of those concurrently, either concurrently or sequentially.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Brad, that you would like to add?
Yeah, at one point, we are starting to put together an RFP for these, so we are beginning the work. So we'll be ready to go as soon as we got the time to do it.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to recommend council approve ordinance number 2024-16, repealing and recreating Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances relating to sign regulations. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to recognize Brad for his work on this, and our intern, Michael Burrows. Michael is in the audience tonight. He reminded me before the meeting that he drafted the ordinance, so he's done a lot of the background work on this, and he will be going back to school here in August. We always hate to see him leave, but like to see him come back every summer. So thank you, Michael.
Item number 2, commission recommends council approve resolution number 2024-14, rescinding ordinance number 2024-08, a moratorium on select signs, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Council President Borchert. Is there any discussion on this item? Any questions, any discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to recommend approval of Resolution 2024-14, rescinding ordinance number 2024-08, a moratorium on select signs. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. This is the opportunity for anyone from the public who would like to speak before council on a topic of interest. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public forum? Anyone who would like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public forum and move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has 3 items on it: approval of temporary Class B picnic license application to Fox Valley Labor Council for Labor Fest to be held September 2nd. Approval of temporary Class B picnic license application to Gord's Pub for Gord's Street Dance to be held August 9th. Oh, only 2 items. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of those consent agenda items? Any objection? Seeing none, those consent agenda items are approved. The next item on the agenda, reports of standing committees, the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of July 30th. Chairman Lendrum.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of July 30th, 2024. Minutes can be found on the city website. We have 3 items tonight. Item number 1, committee recommends council approve $4,482.25 of the 2024 budgeted roof replacement funds for fire station number 31 to be used for lighting replacement at fire station number 31. And I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to commend the chief for and his team for basically repurposing what these are smaller dollars, but they're being channeled for, LED, basically LED lighting, which will be beneficial long term. And little things don't get noticed. I don't think it pointed out, but I think it's always good to quantify the positives. So thanks, Chief.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve $4,482.25 of the 2024 budgeted roof replacement funds for Fire Station number 31 to be used for lighting replacement at Fire Station 31. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 2, committee recommends council approve the purchase of an ABI force field groomer, it's the thing that grooms like baseball and softball fields, from Horse Distributing in the amount of $44,627, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Is there any discussion on this item? Any questions? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve the purchase of the ABI force field groomer from Horse Distributing in the amount of $44,627. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And the third and last item, committee recommends council approve the transferring license business to business application of the Class B combination intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage license to West Hill Bar Incorporated, doing business as My Place, 1127 South Commercial Street, Gurvinder Singh, agent, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve the transferring license business to business application of the Class B combination intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverages license to West Hill Bar Incorporated, doing business as My Place, 1127 South Commercial Street. Gurvinder Singh, agent. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the Special Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of August 5th. Chairman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the Special Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of August 5th, 2024. The first item on the agenda is the committee recommends council approve annexation 234, ordinance 2024-17, annexing city-owned property north of Liberty Avenue in the town of Vinland to the city of Neenah. An action on this item takes place under the Plan Commission report. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. And then the meeting for July 29th was canceled, so there is no report. So moving on to the Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue Joint Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of July 24th. Chairman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out on the meeting of July 24th. Minutes can be found on the city website. Item number 1, the committee recommends council approve the proposed 2025 cost distribution formula with the city of Neenah's share to be 61.12% and the city of Menasha's share to be at 38.8%. And I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Boyette, seconded by Council President Borchert. Is there any discussion on this item? Just to clarify, Menasha's share at 38.88%. Any discussion? The motion on the floor then is approval of the proposed 2025 cost distribution formula with the city of Neenah's share at 61.12% and the city of Menasha's share at 38.88%. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 2, the committee recommends council approve Neenah Resolution 2024-13 for approval of the project for Winnebago County Spirit Fund local government allocation, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Boyette. Seconded by Council President Borchert. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to point out that the chief is here if anyone has any additional questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, any comments? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve Resolution 2024-13 for approval of the project for Winnebago County Spirit Fund local government allocation. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And the final item is the committee recommends both the City of Neenah and the City of Menasha Common Councils approve filling the vacant Assistant Chief / Fire Marshal's position, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Boyette, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out that this is basically, and the chief can maybe attest to it, it's a cost neutral, because this position, I think, is 100% funded by fees collected. Is that correct, Chief? Could you come and explain it? I think it's just important to educate a council, because this is a pretty important position, and it's funded not by us, in essence.
Yep, the fire department receives money called 2% dues from the state of Wisconsin. It's basically rebates on insurance between the city of Neenah, the city of Menasha. We receive well over enough money that pays for this position. And part of us, to receive that money, we have to have somebody in this position that makes sure the fire inspections are done, code enforcement is handled. So I believe that's what you were addressing.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to recommend City of Neenah and City of Menasha Common Councils approve filling the vacant Assistant Chief Fire Marshal's position. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda, the regular Plan Commission meeting of July 30th. Alderman Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Minutes can be found on the city website. Commission recommends council approve annexation number 234, ordinance number 2024-17, and the property also receive an R1 single-family residence district zoning classification, and I so move.
There's a motion by
Second.
Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Paulno. Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is approval of annexation number 234, ordinance number 2024-17, and the property also receive an R1 single-family residence district zoning classification. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the Board of Public Works meeting of August 7th, 2024. Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The minutes from this meeting can be found on the city website. There's one council action item this evening. The Board of Public Works recommends to council award contract 9-24 epoxy pavement markings to Century Traffic Incorporated in the amount of $95,747.20, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lendrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to award contract 924 epoxy pavement markings to Century Traffic Incorporated in the amount of $95,747.20. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda, Sustainable Neenah Committee. Is there any report? Alderman Lendrum.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Bergstrom-Mahler Museum, is there any report?
Thank you,
Council
Mayor.
President Borchert.
Oh, yes. Saturday, this Saturday looks to be a beautiful day. The nation's only outdoor all-glass art event will be taking place at the Bergstrom-Mahler Museum. This admission is free. There'll be best in glass art for sale from over 40 nationally known glass artists, glass blowing demonstrations, live music, food and beverages, kids activities, and new exhibitions and galleries. So if you're looking for something to do, it's 10 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. at the Bergstrom-Mahler Museum. That's all.
Thank you for your report. Parks and Recreation Commission, Alderman Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. The Park and Rec Commission met on July 18th. Those minutes are on the city website. Two items I'd like to just bring of note. The Neenah Baseball Inc. group did do a presentation on some potential additional lighting at Southview Park, discussion around what that might look like and some of the things around that. So the first action is for the staff, the Park and Rec staff, to work with Neenah Baseball Inc. on drafting a memorandum of understanding. So more to come on that. The second item, the monument that has been proposed at Oak Hill Cemetery for the recent wars on terrorism, had quite a bit of discussion and back and forth to just try to get things to the final end there. No decision was made yet, but it was put on the agenda for our next meeting, the commission meeting on August 15th. So again, more information to come after that meeting. That ends my report.
Thank you for your report. Are there any petitions? Council directives. We had a motion and a second for a council directive to review the grant policy using the Meridian barrier situation as a guideline to ensure the issues with the memorandum of understanding don't happen again. Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you want me to kind of go through a list of the questions that I'm seeking information on?
Sure, and I think just clarification, would you want that to be a committee of the whole meeting or go to committee?
Actually, because it's really good information and I want the entire council to be aware of it, I think either a council
Committee of
or
the
a
whole.
committee of the whole, regardless. Yep, exactly. And I did make this list out, and then I did send a copy to Director Rasmussen because I'm gathering from, I did receive a copy of the policy today, and from that it says that the issuer is the finance department, so that's why I sent it to her. But she does have a list of these questions, and I just thought that I would share them with everyone so they kind of understand the information that I'm seeking. Okay. Review of the grant policy. Obviously, I wanted a copy of the grant policy because it's older, and so I have that, and I think everybody was given a copy this evening, so that was number one on my list, so we can kind of cross that off. But also, my questions are, so we have authorized a job description change for position of the assistant to the mayor and hired that individual with grant experience. And I'm curious to know how many grants has this individual written, sought out to apply for, and what is the process from there? The other questions are, does committee or council get notified at any point during this part of the process, or only if it's within a certain dollar amount, and if so, when? And then the grant policy and process. I have it currently now. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you to your staff for locating this. I searched the website and I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure where it was even located. And then the other questions is, how is it determined which committee each grant gets jurisdiction over? And then lastly, when does it move to council for approval and acceptance? And overall, in general, like, we kind of joked about it when I was talking with Vicki, but it's like, is there a policy on policies? Because, like, I don't know where to find the policies. I don't know who is the keeper of the policy. Like, so that, again, that's kind of more information that went into just finding grant policy information. And then it, like, just kind of everything else, it feels like you've opened up another slew of questions. So again, just trying to figure out where the aldermen can get their information and be educated on everything that's going on, so we know what questions to ask and or that we don't need to ask. And so it's more or less an information find. And again, if I'm wrong or I'm incorrect in directing it to Director Rasmussen with the finance department, I would look for clarification on that at this time.
No, I think it's fine.
I think it's fine.
Is that where it belongs?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's all I could think of when I saw.
The only clarification that I would like to include is probably want to talk about several examples of the grant process as the Spirit Fund process was really not a standard grant policy
yes.
process at all.
And I totally understand that. I only use that as an example because it was the freshest one.
Yeah.
And again, if we have some others, we could choose a few or yeah, I would leave
Yeah, it was
that.
a very unusual situation, but I think we should talk about the more standard ones as well.
Yep, and that's fine. Again, this is all informational. I'm not looking to point fingers at who went wrong and who did what wrong. I'm looking to learn and to be educated as well as the council. We just want to know. And then, when could we get this information back? Do we need to have a special committee of the whole, or would that be at another council meeting?
I think we would have to have a special committee of the whole meeting to discuss that.
And how much time would Director Rasmussen need before we could schedule that?
Maybe in
2 weeks?
2 weeks. Yeah, probably
vote on
2
the
weeks
council director.
before budget season is upon us more heavily.
Okay. So if this council directive passes, then this would happen in 2 weeks' time then?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Would that be the 21st before our normal council meeting? Would you want that?
Separate night or same night?
Same night? Same night.
Did you have anything else, or can I?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Alderman Steiner.
I guess I'm just trying to understand why we have to have a totally separate meeting, committee of the whole on this, why we can't just have it as an agenda item, as long as we're meeting, it's why have it at 6:30 versus just have it as a item to discuss. Does that work?
It works for me.
Okay.
Works for me.
I think that's a good idea.
So we can do that then? Great, even better. Thank you.
So the motion on the floor, then maybe we need more clarification on what it is. To review the grant policy using the Meridian barrier situation as a guideline to ensure the issues with the memorandum of understanding don't happen again is what the motion is.
Do you want me to amend that motion at this time?
That's up to you.
Brian, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, I would, to clarify a little bit more of what you discussed, I think that might be a little bit more direction in who and when and time-wise, in lieu of our earlier committee as a whole meeting, as defined as possible would help.
Correct. Okay, so a generalization of what I just said. Let me pull that back up. So reviewing the grant policy, the same thing, let's just omit that last part with the last meeting, the last grant issue. We can remove that.
Okay, so are you stating the motion on the floor is to review the grant policy
And process.
and process?
And I've given the
And
list.
have it be 2 weeks from now
Sure,
as
an agenda
item on the council
correct.
agenda.
With the questions that I had submitted to Director Rasmussen. Yes.
Okay. Okay,
And she has them.
is that clear to everyone then?
And the questions I submitted to her were what I read aloud just now, so everybody's aware of them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the amended motion has now been understood, and I think we are able to vote on that. So please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unfinished business.
Point of order, that was the amended motion. Don't we still
Oh,
have to
right.
vote on it?
Thank you.
Good thing I had that training.
After the training, yep. Okay, so we're back to the original motion then. The motion to review the grant policy using the Meridian barrier situation as a guideline to ensure the issues with the memorandum of understanding don't happen again. Please cast your vote on your voting device.
Oh, I'm confused. I thought I was voting that one down because I voted the other one. Because we took that off. So can I change my vote then?
The effect will be the same. I think Daniel pointed out to us in the committee of the whole that you're really just, it's superfluous, the
Yeah.
second vote. But either way, it's going to be the same because the amended one
The
passed.
amended one passed.
I expected a no vote as well, so.
I did as
So
well.
can I get permission to change my vote to a yes so I don't look like an idiot?
I don't think it's going to make any
No.
difference.
You wanted to vote no, I think, because you had passed the previous one.
I'm so confused. You did it right.
You did it right. It's fine.
And it hasn't been announced.
So the net effect is what you wanted.
Just be done.
All right. Moving on.
Mayor,
That
I'm-
motion passes 6-2.
I'm sorry, Mayor, is there, I'm not privy to this topic, but is there an expectation for staff to be present? And I'm not sure which staff, and you're,
Part of the council meeting, an item
yeah,
on the
you're
agenda.
talking about the grant policy, obviously that affects all our departments. I'm not saying they all should be there, I'm just, and maybe it doesn't have to get answered. Well, I'll be here, Jerry will be here, David will be here.
I'll probably ask Michael Kading to come, as he does a lot of DNR grants and
Yep.
so
Yeah.
forth.
He's working with
Perfect.
Holly on one
Yeah,
right now.
I think it might be advisable to have someone like Mike and others that are. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Paul, no.
Thank you. Under unfinished business, I just want to speak to the, I think I've sent an email out about the Committee on Rules, just to dovetail on what we had for training tonight. I think when I first got elected, I was thinking we should do the Committee on Rules, and it's been a couple months now, so just urge the committee, I think we should, get that back on focus, because it's been about 2.5 months, so I just urge the committee if they can meet sooner rather than later to move that forward. Thank you.
Any other unfinished business? Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to put on a future agenda that, is this the time to do this? That we have our security training. Last year, we talked
yep.
about having annual security training, and it's about that time again. So if we could get that scheduled.
Sounds good. Thank you for that reminder. Next item on the agenda then, new business, the Arrowhead Park Development Status Report. Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The Arrowhead Park Committee met on Monday and reviewed 5 RFPs, and we agreed to bring back 4 of the companies for in-person proposals next week. That concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Are there any other announcements or questions that could legally come before the council? Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. So I briefly said something earlier about it, and I jokingly, but actually I'm very serious about it. I'm looking to find out where the policies are. Like, we should really have a policy book, like we have a rule book. Because, for instance, like this policy for the grant policy, I could not find it on the website. And when I went to Director Rasmussen, she couldn't find it. She actually had a staff member locate it for her. So that tells me that I'm not really stupid when it comes to the computer, because I wasn't the only one that couldn't find it. But I'm just curious, like this among other policies, where are they kept? How do we find them? And is there a certain place on the website, or are they in a box in the basement, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. So I'm just curious. Like,
Okay, well, thanks for bringing that up, and we will do a little investigation and come back with an answer for you.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Is there any other announcement or a question that could come before the council? Seeing none, is there a motion to convene into closed session Per Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent B, considering the investigation of charges against a public employee regarding the city attorney.
I would make a motion to convene into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.85, para 1, para B, considering the investigation of charges against a public employee regarding the city attorney.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0. We are in closed session.
The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.